John leaned against the living room window frame, his gaze drifting over a suburban Chicago street bathed in the pale gold of autumn. Along the sidewalk, scattered leaves spun in the cold wind, rustling against each other in a steady, dry chorus. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and decaying foliage, a combination that made the anxiety in John's chest feel heavier. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself, but his gut told him this day was going to be unlike any other. His phone buzzed on the side table, the screen flashing an incoming call. It was Emily, his younger sister. Her voice, shaking and strained, came through the speaker. "John, can you get over here right now? I need to talk to you. It's important." John's heart hammered harder, his palms slightly slick with sweat. Emily never called like this unless something monumental was happening. He knew something, critical something, potentially life-altering was waiting for him. He flashed back to recent family dinners. His father, Michael, always stoic and reserved, regarded everything with a rigid, unyielding gaze. His mother, Linda, usually employed a gentle smile and silence to diffuse tension, yet a flicker of hidden worry always betrayed her eyes. Meals had become silent affairs, punctuated only by the clock ticking on the wall, the clink of silverware against china, underscoring the quiet strain that had settled over the house. John descended the staircase, his footsteps echoing heavily on the hardwood floor. When he opened the front door, Emily was standing there, hair slightly disheveled, face drawn, her eyes red. She took a ragged breath, fighting for composure, but her voice still trembled. "John, you have to listen to me. I have to tell you something you're not going to believe." John moved closer, placing a hand firmly on her shoulder, trying to impart some of his own forced calm. "Just say it. I'm right here." Emily looked up at him, her eyes a mix of fear and grim determination. John registered every small gesture, from the slight tremor in her fingers to the momentary way her gaze darted away, all of it loaded with worry and pressure. He knew what she was about to say would change everything. Outside, a strong gust of wind whistled through the doorframe, causing the living room door to rattle softly. The rustling of leaves on the pavement seemed to emphasize the unsettling stillness within the room. John felt his chest tighten. He had never seen Emily like this. Part of him wanted to delay the inevitable with mundane questions, but his instinct urged him to absorb every detail. Every pause. Emily slowly sank onto the sofa, clutching her hands tightly together, her eyes fixed on the floor. John sat opposite her, watching every tiny movement, the way her fingers twitched, the way her bottom lip was caught between her teeth, and the catch in her voice as she began. She sighed, a long exhale that seemed intended to release all the tension building inside her. "It started late last weekend," Emily began, her voice a fragile thread. I found something out, a secret about Dad, about our whole family, that I never, ever imagined." She dropped her head, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. John gripped his own hands, his expression a mixture of confusion and resolution. "I'm listening. Take your time and just tell me everything, Emily." John recalled fragments from the previous weekend, muffled arguing from upstairs, their mother's anxious look when his father was mentioned, and the unsettling feeling he'd consciously tried to ignore. Now, every piece was snapping into a picture he desperately wished he hadn't seen. Outside, the wind intensified, playing through the trees, sweeping the fallen leaves into a sharp, dry rush. A stray leaf tumbled against the window pane, a small tap that somehow made the room even quieter. John felt a jolt run through him, an instinctive signal that this was the definitive moment, the moment when every secret, every belief, every feeling he had about his family was about to be challenged. Emily began to tell the story in detail, her voice shaking, her eyes still cast down. John listened, every word feeling like a fresh cut to his heart. He could feel the fear, the shame, and the deep sense of betrayal laced through Emily's every utterance. The room felt heavy, as if the very air had paused to listen to the confession. John took a deep breath, looking out the window one last time. The city of Chicago was shrouded in the pale gray of late afternoon, weak light filtering through the tree canopy. He realized that, from this moment on, nothing about their family would ever be the same. A secret was about to be laid bare, and he knew they would have to face the unforeseen consequences. Emily took a shaky, deep breath, then began to speak, her voice trembling but resolute. "Late last weekend, I went up to the attic to look for those old boxes of seasonal clothes, and I found a letter tucked inside one of Dad's old wooden keepsake boxes. I knew I probably shouldn't have opened it, but curiosity just won out." John tightened his grip on his knees, a knot of dread forming in his chest. "A letter?" he asked, his voice low and tight with anticipation. Emily nodded. Yeah. And when I read it, I honestly couldn't believe it. The contents, they talk about something Dad has never, ever mentioned to anyone in the family. A secret, John, about why Mom always gets so weird and avoids talking about the past. John let out a slow exhale, a chaotic mix of emotions swirling inside him. He recalled his mother's worried expression during recent evenings, the abnormal stretches of silence, the fleeting moments of tears he hadn't understood. Now, everything was beginning to make a painful, shocking kind of sense. Emily held out the letter to John, her hand shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. John took it, feeling as if he were holding a tremendous weight, not just paper and ink, but years of suppressed secrets. He unfolded it, his eyes scanning every line, every comma, every mark of his father's handwriting. His heart hammered rapidly. A slight tremor ran through his body. John, you need to hear all of this. I don't know what we're going to do if this gets out. Everything is going to change. Emily whispered, her voice barely holding together. John gently placed the letter on the coffee table and looked straight at Emily. We'll face it together. I'm not going to bail on you, Em, but what exactly happened that Dad has kept buried all this time? Emily bowed her head, her voice choked with emotion. The letter says that Dad used to carry a huge debt, a massive mistake from his past. It involved an old friend, and if people find out, our family will fall apart. A cold dread shot down John's spine. He had never imagined that their seemingly tranquil years were built atop such a grave secret. A tidal wave of feeling surged, confusion, anger, deep-seated worry, but also a firm resolve to protect the family. Outside, the wind picked up fiercely, rattling the living room door again. The dry rustle of falling leaves intensified, seeming to emphasize the mounting tension in the room. John felt it clearly. Everything had shifted. This moment marked a turning point from which none of their family members would ever look back the same way. Emily sat silently, her eyes fixed on the letter, her hands clasped tightly together. John took a deep breath, trying to inject some calm into the atmosphere. I know this is going to be incredibly difficult, but we have to move forward together. We're in this, Em. Nobody gets left behind, and no more secrets. A long silence enveloped the room. Only the steady ticking of the grandfather clock remained, a constant reminder that time was moving on, and every decision made in this moment would affect the entire future of their family. John looked out the window. The houses along the street were fading into the pale evening light, and yellow leaves spun away on the breeze. He realized that life sometimes boils down to moments just like this, a revealed secret, a critical decision, and the choice between facing the truth and accepting the comfort of silence. John remained seated, his eyes fixed on Emily, trying to absorb her every nervous movement and worried glance. A part of him wanted to immediately call his father and demand answers, but reason cautioned him to be careful. One wrong move now could make everything infinitely worse. Emily pushed the letter back onto the table, her hands still tightly clenched. John, I think I need to talk to Mom first. She has a right to know about this, but I'm scared Dad is going to be furious, she choked out. John nodded, letting out a long sigh. Okay, we'll take it slow. Nobody is going to get angry, but we need to be honest with each other. He stood up and walked into the kitchen, fetching 2 glasses of warm water. The gentle sound of running water in the silence created a small buffer, a brief psychological cooldown. Emily watched John, her eyes still red-rimmed, but a fraction of her fear seemed to have subsided. After a few minutes of quiet, John and Emily decided to head up to their mother, Linda's room. Their steps echoed on the hardwood floor, each footfall seeming to emphasize the mounting tension in the air. When they knocked, their mother looked up, her eyes showing a flash of surprise. Kids, what are you two doing up here? Emily spoke first, her voice wavering. Mom, you need to know something. A secret about Dad, and about our family. Linda's brow furrowed. She froze slightly, her hands trembling as she set her teacup down. John stood beside his sister, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. At that moment, Michael, John's father, emerged from his study down the hall. His eyes were cold but intensely focused. What is going on in here? He demanded. His voice was low and gravelly, carrying a weight that made the room feel heavier. Emily shakily held out the letter, looking directly at her father. Dad, this is what I found. I don't know how to handle it, but I think we need to talk about the truth. Michael strode over, taking the letter into his hand. His eyes widened, and a long, painful moment of silence stretched out. John could distinctly feel his father's heart pounding. The entire room was gripped by stillness, broken only by the steady tick of the clock, emphasizing every tense second. How did you two find out about this? Michael finally managed, his voice trembling a tremble John had never heard before. It was the sound of a strong man cornered, finally forced to confront his buried past. Emily looked down, her voice tight. I found the letter. I didn't want to hide it from you, but I was also scared of what would happen to the family if this ever came out. Michael took a deep, shuddering breath, his expression shifting from startled confusion to deep worry, and then slowly softening. John, Emily, I never wanted either of you to know this, but now, there's no getting around it. We have to face this together. A profound silence settled over the room. The family stood there, each person carrying their own heavy emotion, fear, anxiety, anger, but also a dawning resolve. John felt a surge of energy. This moment was the undeniable turning point, where all the long-held secrets were exposed, and every family relationship would be tested for survival. Emily grasped John's hand, seeking an anchor, while John placed his hand on his father's shoulder, trying to communicate one message: we will get through this, together. Outside, the wind still whistled past the windows, the dry rustle of leaves mirroring the subtle, persistent tension still lingering in the room. Michael stood in the middle of the living room, the letter in his hand, his eyes distant as he carefully weighed every single word. The entire room was heavy with silence. The combined breaths of the three people echoed like a slow, deliberate drumbeat. Emily stood close to John, clutching his sleeve, her red-rimmed eyes focused on her father with a mixture of worry and a touch of resentment for the years of deceit. John spoke up, his voice steady and firm. Dad, you have to tell us everything. We need the truth, right now. This has gone on too long. Michael inhaled sharply, his voice trembling in a way John had never heard before. All right, kids. I'll tell you everything. But you have to promise me, no one panics, no one does anything rash. Emily nodded, tears still welling up. John squeezed her hand. We promise. Michael lowered his voice and spoke slowly. Years ago, I made a grave mistake with an old business associate. That debt, it almost cost me everything: our home, my career, even my marriage. I tried to bury it, found ways to pay it off gradually, and I honestly thought you shouldn't have to bear that pain. Emily let out a choked sob, tears spilling over, her voice fragile. But Dad, keeping a secret like that only makes things worse. I don't want our family to fall apart because of what we hide. John stood up, stepping closer to his father. Dad, why didn't you just tell us sooner? We could have helped. We don't need any reason other than the truth. But by keeping it a secret, you only put us in more danger. Michael looked at John, his eyes filled with genuine remorse. I was wrong. I wanted to protect you. But now it's come back. That old associate, he's found a way to contact me. They're threatening the family. Emily gasped, her heart pounding. The family. Threatened who? Michael bowed his head, his voice a low, shaky admission. The associate. They know I'm still holding on to some important documents, and if I don't settle the debt, they can make everything fall apart. I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to be involved. John felt his heart seize up. He looked at Emily. Their eyes met, both seeing the fear, the worry, but also a fierce determination to protect their family unit. We'll face it together, John said, his voice ringing with resolve. No more secrets, and we don't abandon anyone. Emily moved toward her father, gripping his shirt sleeve, her voice still trembling. Dad, you're not alone anymore. We'll solve this with you. We're all in this. Michael closed his eyes, a long breath escaping him, as if releasing the burden of years. Thank you, kid. I know now the only way forward is together. A heavy silence filled the room, the ticking clock, the whistling wind through the window, and the dry rustle of leaves outside resonated, emphasizing the tension that had been partially released, yet still held the worry for the steps ahead. John sat down next to Emily, holding her hand tightly, trying to convey calm and resolve. Emily leaned her head against his shoulder, sighing, but the excessive trembling had subsided. They both knew that every decision from this moment on would affect their lives, but at least the truth was out, and they had begun a new journey to face the threat, overcome it together, and protect their family. Outside, the pale light of evening faded, the wind still biting through the cracks, and the leaves still flying. The atmosphere remained quiet, but inside the small room, a transformation had occurred. The family, though shaken, had begun to stand together. Following the revelation, the room was engulfed in a heavy silence. John sat beside Emily, his hands still tightly gripping his sister's, his eyes fixed on his father with fierce determination. Emily still leaned against his shoulder, her eyes red-rimmed, but the fear in them had subsided, replaced by a steely resolve to face the challenge alongside her brother. Michael took a deep breath, his voice low but decisive. We can't run anymore. That old associate is trying to strong-arm us. If we don't act, things will quickly spiral out of control. John stood up, moving closer to his father. Dad, we are going to help you. We need to create a concrete plan. Everything has to be transparent now. More hiding. No one gets left out. Emily sighed, looking at the two men in the room, her voice shaky but firm. We need to clearly identify what you owe, who this person is, and how we protect the family. Otherwise, a secret will turn into a disaster. Michael nodded, his eyes showing a mix of anxiety and forced calm. Yes, we will analyze everything. First, I'll give you all the relevant documents. After that, we'll figure out a safe way to contact this associate, and if necessary, involve legal counsel. The room became quietly busy. John grabbed a pad and pen. Emily began taking notes on the details, and Michael sifted through old papers and files related to the letter, explaining the debt, the connections, and the past events his children had never known. The rustle of paper, the scratching of the pen, and the steady breathing mingled with the ticking clock, creating a tense but focused rhythm. Emily let out a soft sigh. Looking towards the window, we need to identify who can help, a trustworthy lawyer or someone reliable. But at the same time, we have to proceed with caution. If the associate finds out we're planning a defense, they might retaliate harder. John nodded, feeling the pressure build but also a surge of determination. We have to divide the work. I'll start contacting a good lawyer. Emily, you go through the old documents and cross-reference everything. Dad, you need to write down the entire truth, every single detail, chronologically. We have to be completely transparent with each other. Michael looked at his two children, his gaze unusually warm. I am so proud that you've both grown up to be so thoughtful and united. We will get through this, together, no matter how tough it gets. The three sat around the table, beginning to draw up lists and assign tasks. John outlined the necessary steps. Emily added details about the debt figures and associated people, and Michael explained the historical context and potential risks. The room filled with energy, yet remained charged with tension, as every decision now could affect their safety and happiness. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, leaves scattering in the draft. The Chicago evening light faded, casting long shadows across their faces, highlighting their fatigue, pressure, but ultimately their resolve. John and Emily exchanged a look of deep understanding, sensing that they had finally begun to stand together against the coming storm. Emily sighed, her voice soft but certain. We have no other path. We can only face this together. We will see it through. John squeezed her hand, affirming silently. Damn right. We leave no one behind. Not this time. Not ever. A moment of quiet enveloped the room. The clock still ticked steadily. The wind still whistled outside, but inside, the three individuals had found a new connection, one forged in truth, resolve, and family love, despite the uncharted dangers ahead. The room grew darker as the last of the pale light vanished. John stood by the window, his eyes fixed on the empty street, feeling as if every falling leaf outside was signaling something inevitable. Emily stood near the table, clutching John's sleeve, her eyes shimmering with the reflection of the streetlights. Michael sat in a chair, the old letter still in his hand, his face strained but resolute. The shrill ring of the landline suddenly cut through the heavy silence. John quickly moved to the phone and picked up. Hello. A cold voice emanated from the other end, a man's voice, deep and sharp. Michael, we need to meet. If we don't, the consequences won't just involve your assets, but your whole family. The entire room went dead silent. Emily swallowed hard, her voice a shaky whisper. Is that the old associate Dad talked about? Michael nodded, his eyes briefly closing. Yes. And now, they're not just threatening, they're trying to control the situation. This is the moment we need to exercise maximum caution. John squeezed Emily's hand tightly. We need to know exactly what they want. We can't let anything throw us off balance. Emily nodded, letting out a breath, her expression a mix of fear and fierce determination. We have to protect Dad and the family. Michael stood up, his voice low and firm. We will meet them, but only when we are fully prepared. The lawyer will be with us. The documents have been copied, and John, you will stay close to Emily, keep your cool, and ensure everything remains secure. In the brief moment of silence, all three could feel their hearts pounding heavily. Everything seemed to slow down, each moment stretching, every sound becoming sharper, the clock ticking, the wind whistling through the cracks, the dry rustle of leaves outside. John looked at his father. Dad, I know you're worried, but we have no choice. We have to face them, no matter the danger. Michael nodded. Exactly, and we will face them together. No secrets, no one left behind. Emily lowered her head, her voice trembling but steady. We've prepared, and we will stand firm, no matter what. Family is what matters most. The three moved towards the door. The last light of the day shone on the empty street, casting long shadows on the ground. John held Emily's hand, feeling her tremble but also sensing the resolve in her eyes. Michael led the way, his gaze sharp, preparing for a confrontation that could change everything. Outside the door, the wind blew harder, scattering leaves. In the distance, John could make out a dark sedan pulling to a stop, the figures inside flickering under the streetlights, signaling the danger that lay ahead. They took slow, deliberate steps, knowing that from this moment on, nothing would ever be the same. A feeling of intense anticipation and stress filled the air. Every step, every breath, was critical. The family, now united, had stepped together into a battlefield without guns, but full of peril and resolve. The black sedan finally pulled to a stop near a discreet, sparsely lit cafe on the outskirts of Chicago. Michael stepped out first, followed closely by John and Emily, the crushing pressure of the moment bearing down on their shoulders like a physical wave. Emily gripped John's arm tightly, her eyes reflecting the shimmering streetlights. John felt the tension in every breath, his heart hammering harder than normal. The old associate emerged from the Loza, tall figure with sharp eyes that seemed intent on reading every thought in Michael's mind. He looked at Michael, then scanned John and Emily, his voice cold and low. Michael, we need to settle this now. If we don't, the consequences won't just be financial. They'll affect the happiness of your family. Michael stepped forward, his voice deep but steady. We will settle this, but we will do it transparently and fairly. No one is getting hurt anymore. This is the last time this ends anything. John moved up beside him, his voice firm. Our family is not afraid. We will face everything together, and we are not hiding anything from each other. The old associate took a deep breath, then unexpectedly pulled out a thick envelope and placed it on a nearby table. This is the complete file on the old debt, the related details, and the information I still hold. I won't do anything further, provided you are ready to cooperate transparently. Michael looked at the envelope, his eyes showing both surprise and immense relief, feeling as if a burden of years had been lifted. We will do what is right. Family is what matters most, and from now on, everything will be transparent. Emily let out a quiet sigh, a slight glimmer of joy in her eyes, though she remained cautious. We passed the first test, but now, we need to plan so this never puts us in danger again. John squeezed her hand, smiling. That's right, we faced it together. We didn't abandon anyone. The old associate nodded, a look of respect surfacing on his face. I understand, and I will withdraw. But remember, the past always lingers. What has happened will teach you a lesson about trust, caution, and the strength of family. The three walked back toward the car, the pale yellow light shining on the quiet road, their long shadows reflecting their journey, slow but sure steps, each one critical, because from this moment on, nothing would be as it was before. Michael looked at John and Emily, his eyes warm. Kids, I am so proud that you've grown up, that you were willing to face this challenge with me. I've never been so worried, but now, I feel a peace knowing you stand beside me. Emily leaned into her father's arm, her voice shaky but filled with happiness. We made it through. Family is still what matters most. No matter what happens, we'll stand firm. John smiled, feeling the invisible bond between them, knowing that from now on, no challenge could truly divide this family. The car rolled onto the empty street, the passing streetlights catching the leaves scattered by the wind, creating a rare scene of tranquility after the storm of tension. Outside, the wind whistled through the trees, the leaves rustled, and the fading evening light bathed their faces in a golden hue, underscoring their relief and renewed determination. John turned to Emily, a genuine smile on his face. I think we learned one thing: truth, resolve, and family love are the strongest forces. No secret can break us anymore. Emily held his hand tighter, her eyes glistening. That's right, and whatever the future holds, we will never let go of each other. Michael looked at his two children, his eyes damped but filled with pride. Kids, I know this family has become stronger because of the challenges we just faced. We will move forward together, protect each other, and never let the past hold us back. The ticking clock in their memories served as a reminder that time marched on, but now, they were ready to face whatever lay ahead together, leaving no one behind. The three looked at each other, their smiles soft but heartfelt. The truth had been revealed, the immediate threat was contained, and the family stood firm, stronger, more united, and prepared for any future challenge. The pale yellow lights dimmed as the car turned the corner. The wind blew, the leaves flew, but in their hearts a new calm and resolve had settled, a reminder that family, truth, and courage are the forces that endure.